In today's video, you're going to learn 3 reasons why poker is designed to mess with your emotions. If you stick around to the end of the video, I'll be teaching you how to break free, how to regain control of your emotional responses. Now, most players I speak with, and most players I work with, their emotional problems, or all the emotions they experience, are magnified at the poker tables. Generally, they're very logical, calm people away from the poker tables, but then you sit them down at the poker tables and everything comes up. I can picture myself growing up, I didn't really have too many emotional flare-ups. Maybe my brother would annoy me or occasionally beat me at sports and I'd throw a tantrum, but most of my life I didn't have like big emotional reactions. Then I started playing poker for a living, and all of a sudden I was like, what is all this stuff? What's all these emotions that I'm spewing out onto the tables? Why am I so frustrated? Why am I getting angry all the time? Why do I feel these insecurities that I haven't felt before? Now, having worked with hundreds of poker players, it's now my belief that poker is the perfect training ground to work on your emotions. I'd actually say if you wanted to create a perfect simulation for how to stimulate emotional responses, you would design a game very much like poker. So first of all, today we're going to talk about why poker is designed to create this emotional response. It's not because someone behind the scenes has been trying to orchestrate it this way, it's just the nature of the game. But then we're going to talk about how poker players generally deal with this in the wrong way, and then how to regain control of our emotional responses. Alright, so the first reason why poker is very challenging on our emotions is uncertainty is built into the framework of the game. Alright, so uncertainty in terms of variance of your results, variance of card distribution, variance of runouts, and generally it's the results that we're getting in the short term. Alright, any single thing can happen at the poker tables, as you're aware of, and this builds this uncertainty. Alright, it also builds uncertainty about our decision making. Did we make a mistake? Was that a strategic error? There's all this hidden information that we don't actually know. Did we make a mistake? Was it bad luck? And what the hell is going on? So that's how it kind of impacts us on a kind of fundamental level. But then we've got to look at why is that a problem? Why does that create an emotional issue? Well, as humans, we love certainty. We love being able to predict the future. This is definitely from our kind of hunter and gatherer age, where if we could predict what was going to happen next, whether a predator is going to come, whether we have resources, being able to predict the future and being certain of what's going to happen was very good for our survival. So when we lack certainty, we start to panic. Right? We try to create certainty. And how this impacts you emotionally is basically when you seek certainty or when you struggle to deal with uncertainty, it creates fear and self-doubt. Fear and self-doubt. Think about it for yourself when you haven't got certainty. Maybe it's certainty, am I going to win today? Am I going to get good results this month? Maybe it's uncertainty around, did I play that hand right? Or did I make a mistake? What generally underlies this is a feeling of fear. Fear that you might mess up. Fear that things might not go your way. And then you can also feel doubt. Am I good enough? Am I going to make it work? Can I do this? Alright, so we have these lingering feelings that come with it. Alright, so that's the first one. Uncertainty is built into the framework of the game. The second reason poker is very challenging on your emotions is it feels very unfair often. It feels unfair often. Now this one's quite an obvious one of how it feels unfair. We often lose even whilst playing well. Opponents will suck out on us. We have to watch worse opponents beat us. We have to over and over feel like we're getting drawn out on or having some bad variance and not knowing if we're playing good or bad. Alright, so it just feels inherently unfair due to the nature of variance and how variance plays out over certain samples. So why does that bother us? Why does it bother us if it's unfair? Well, generally life has got a more direct relationship between skill and outcome. Alright, generally if I'm good at something, say if I'm good at maths and I take a maths test, I'll generally do pretty well. Say I'm good at chess and I play my friend at chess, I'll generally beat him. If I'm good at tennis and I play someone who's worse than me, I'll generally beat them. So the skill to outcome in life is generally closely correlated. In poker, in the short term, throw that out the window. Variance is just mess around with that all day, and skill and outcome is not related. So that's why it makes us feel like, what's going on here? Why am I not getting the results that I want? It feels very unfair. It also feels that our efforts aren't being rewarded. We're putting all this work in, we've worked on our game a lot, we're playing good poker, and we're not getting the rewards for the efforts that we put in. So what emotions does this cause? Well, when we feel that we're getting mistreated, or we feel entitled to good results, I'm good, therefore I should win, and we don't get those outcomes, we very often feel anger, or frustration. All right, we're like, this isn't fair. Think about when you've been treated unfairly. Think about when things don't go how you think they should in a fairness kind of equation in your head. How does it make you feel? Generally, you resist that, right? You're like, well, I'm angry, I'm frustrated. Some people go straight to disappointment. All right, we've got this kind of resistant emotions that come up. And the third reason that poker messes with our emotions is the stakes are meaningful. And there's two things that are going on here. The first is on the money tree level and the kind of achievement level. And we're putting money on the line every single decision we make, and there's risk involved in losing money. Now, some people are very sensitive to money swings because they're under financial pressure, or they've got a kind of relationship that's linked to money in a kind of scarcity way. But some people are quite fine with money, and the thing that is on the line for them is their identity. Their identity is linked to being good at poker, to winning, to improving, to moving towards their goals. So when they lose, the money's one side of it, but them as a person, they're putting their identity on the line when they play. I know which one I'd rather put on the line. I'd rather put my money on the line than my identity. All right, and this is a link that a lot of players make. So why is that challenging? Why do we struggle with that? Well, first of all, anytime something meaningful to us that we deem meaningful is threatened, we feel at risk. All right, if I threaten to take something meaningful off you, whether it's money or whether it's your sense of self-worth, you feel threatened, right? You feel at risk. You feel, I need to fight back. So in terms of what emotions generally come up, it's often worry, anxiousness, and a feeling of scarcity, that there's not enough resources or that you are not going to be enough. All right, and depending on where you are in your poker journey, either the money will be a big thing, of the scarcity around money, or be around, I'm not enough. My identity is challenged every time I lose. And very often when poker players are struggling with results, it's their attachment to the narratives that they're telling about results. Either money is very significant, or if they lose, they think they're an idiot, or that they're to blame. All right, so these are the three things that make it hard to play poker on an emotional level. So to recap, we've got uncertainty is built into the fabric of the game. There's no getting away from it. The second one is it's unfair, or it feels unfair very often. And the third one is the stakes are meaningful. We've got things on the line, we've got skin in the game. Now, most players haven't learned to deal with the wide range of emotions that poker puts them through. As a result, they get dragged around by emotions their whole career. When they feel fearful, they either avoid playing or play less volume. When they feel angry or frustrated, they end up making aggressive plays. They fight aggression with aggression. They tilt and spew off buy-ins, or they'll go passive and avoid playing or go into their shell. And it all comes down to not developing a skill, which is called emotional regulation, which we'll go into a bit later, that helps you to handle all these emotions. So the first thing we need to acknowledge is that poker is going to stimulate a lot of emotions, and the second thing to do is, okay, what now? And most players don't get past this phase. And as a result, they do two things to make themselves be able to deal with their emotions, or at least continue with their lives in the most kind of effective way, or at least they think it's effective. It's actually very ineffective. So the first thing people do is they suppress emotions. They push them away. They push them down. All right. They try to get them out of their mind, don't think about them, and they don't allow the emotion to be experienced. Now, emotions are always trying to pass through. Think of emotion as an energy that's always trying to rise. Imagine that you boil a kettle and you put your hand over the kettle. The emotion's like the steam trying to come up. And if you do that, you can do it for long enough, but the internal pressure is building, and at some point, it'll blow. All right, that's what happens with emotions. We can bottle them up all day, but if we're suppressing them, we're not giving them space to be experienced. All right, and also when you suppress emotions, you get very good at, or very bad at experiencing emotions, and you stop being able to spot emotions as they come up. All right, your default's like, suppress that. Emotion comes up, you're like, let's do something else. Let's distract myself. Let's do anything but deal with the emotion. All right, so that's one thing we do, suppress emotions. The second thing people do, which is also a big mistake, is they express the negative emotions. All right, they let the negative emotion play out as it is. All right, so imagine anger is an easy one to think about. They feel angry, express that anger. They vent anger, they'll be aggressive with their actions at the poker tables. They let the emotion take over them. Now, this is bad because it carves up a pattern of how to deal with that emotion going forward. So you basically, that'll be your default way of coping with it. But expression doesn't actually do anything effective other than it releases the heightened part of the emotion. So imagine I've got a really heightened emotion like anger. When I express anger, I release it, like kind of let's say the top 20% of that emotional energy, express it into my environment, then you suppress the rest. All right, that's the thing that people don't understand. When you express the top half, and you suppress the parts the rest of it. All right. Now, neither of those help us in the short term or the long term. The suppression, at least in the short term, we can acknowledge, right? It's not as harmful sometimes to suppress compared to expressing it, but neither of those help us to move forward. All right, so we end up in this we're kind of stuck, we're kind of trapped because we're either pushing them down or we're expressing them, and we feel like we can't win. The other thing that people do, a kind of third thing, which kind of is a suppression tactic, is they escape emotions. All right, they escape it by any mechanism these days: social media, going on YouTube. You can drink alcohol, take substances, you can binge, consume content, you can become a workaholic, anything to distract the mind from our emotions. All right, so we're doing all these things because we haven't learned a skill, a very valuable skill that allows us to take back control of our emotions. Now, every high stakes player I've worked with, I've probably worked with 20 to 50 players who are classed as kind of in the high stakes bracket, and all of them, miraculously, are quite good at regulating their emotions. However, when I speak to them about their early careers, and we go a bit of deep dive in, almost all of them had emotional flare-ups. Almost all of them had issues with their emotions at some point, which teaches me, and hopefully teaches you, that learning to regulate your emotional responses is a skill. It's a skill that you can learn. In poker is, like I said, a perfect training ground to not only stimulate the emotional responses, but to create a training environment for you to actually work on regulating your responses. All right, so how do we do this? How do we do this in an effective way? Now, when I coach my poker athletes, I teach them through 8 skills, and each skill goes through a framework. The first part of a skill is learning about it, how it works, how it impacts you, and why it's important. The second part of the skill is to train it. All right, to train that skill and develop attributes that allow you to use that skill most effectively. And the third level is to perform using that skill. In game, how does it impact you, and how do you perform better using that skill? So when it comes to emotional regulation, the first thing I take my players on is a deep dive into building emotional awareness. Most players have switched off from their bodies. They're all in their minds and thinking and thoughts, and they've switched off from how emotions feel. As a result, they get very bad at spotting what emotions they're going through, all right? So the first thing you've got to do is, say over the course of a week, acknowledge what emotions you're experiencing. Take note of your inner experience. What emotions do you experience on the negative end of the scale on a weekly basis? Watch yourself when you're grinding. Which emotions come up? Try and put a label on them. Then once you've got a label of the emotion, let's say it's frustration or anger, note, how does that feel? Is it intense? Does it feel good? Does it feel bad? How does it feel in the body? The body reactions. Do you feel hot flushes? Do you feel tension in your hands or in your chest? Do you feel agitated or fidgety? Know how it feels in the body. And then what thoughts go with it? Do you blame yourself? Do you blame others? Do you start getting aggressive and want to fight back? How does that affect you? All right, so the first step is learn about the skill and building more of a framework of emotional awareness. Myself, I was very bad at this for a period of time because I was very good at suppressing emotions, and I thought I was some zen with emotions. And if someone had asked me like 6 or 7 years ago, Adam, how are you with emotions? I'd be like, easy, got that covered. In reality, I'd created a big box that was waiting to blow up, and I was suppressing. And when I had to work on this, I had to really think about what emotions am I experiencing. And it was hard at first because my mind was getting very active, but as I followed myself through my days and my weeks, I realized, that's frustration. That's a bit of agitation. That's a bit of fear. And I started to spot the main ones I'm struggling with. So some of you guys will be fear related, some will be anxious related, some will be frustration related. Take note of them. All right, there's generally only 3 to 5 from my experience of emotions that you'll be dealing with at any given time. All right, so that's the first step. Then you've got to understand the triggers response relationship. All right, this is the training part. What things trigger you? And in the poker context, you've got a lot of training to do because you'll realize lots of things trigger you. Some people get triggered by losing, bad results, things not going their way. That's their main trigger. Things being unfair, or is the unfairness element of it. Others get triggered by the uncertainty. Uncertainty of, did I make a mistake? Was it my fault? Was it his fault? Whose fault is it? In this whole blame game. All right, so watch yourself, and as you've got these emotions that you've came up with, that you've explored, what things are triggering you? What things are triggering you? All right. If you do this for a number of weeks, you'll build out a nice framework of what emotions am I experiencing and what things trigger them. This is the birthplace and the starting place of how to gain back control. All right. Most people don't know this. They don't know what's triggering them. They don't know what emotions they're having. They haven't dug deep enough, and therefore they can't regain control. All right. Once you've done that, the next step is to reprogram the meaning that you're giving events. All right, so the reason that an event is causing a response, an emotional response, is because generally you're resisting it. you're resisting it, and your mind is giving a meaning to the event. All right, so let's say, for example, my trigger is a bad beat. Why is a bad beat triggering me? We could say, well, Adam, a bad beat is very emotionally stimulating, but in reality, it's not. It's only stimulating because I've told myself a bad beat is unfair. I didn't deserve this. So my mind is labeling a bad beat, that's unfair, I don't deserve this, I should have won. All right? So if I keep labeling that way, the response is very predictable. I'll keep feeling this kind of resistant response. So the goal is, how can I create a new meaning to the event that is more accepting? Not accepting as in like a passive, I'm going to lay down and get a keel over. Accepting in, I acknowledge reality for what it is. In reality, if you had a bad beat, what does the bad beat really represent? It's just variance. It's an outcome that happened. It's a probability-based outcome. And that's it. Can you be okay with that? And the goal is try to change the meaning you're giving an event to something very resistant to something very accepting. And if you can do that, you'll be amazed with what happens. All right, so you've got to learn to work with the meaning that you're given events. All right, so another one could be when you make a mistake. All right, that's a very common one. So let's say you make a mistake and you label yourself, I'm an idiot. I should know better. Why did I do that? That's going to create quite a visceral response, right? Now it's going to challenge your identity, it's going to challenge your self-worth, it's going to challenge how you're feeling about yourself, you're going to start worry about the future, maybe fears if you're not good enough or not. Quite heavy, right? But what was if we change that resisting and this kind of labeling of self-blame, what was if we change it to something more accepting? I accept that I made a mistake, I will mark this hand, I will learn from it, and I will move on. And the goal becomes using poker as your training ground to watch what emotions you're experiencing, see the trigger that led to that emotion, and look at the meaning that you give it. Can you change it? And if you can change it, the emotion subsides very, very quickly. Now this takes time. This takes work. This is a skill I work with my poker athletes for a full week, and then we generally do ongoing coaching on a group platform for the rest of the year to really, really hammer home how to work on this. But the framework is quite clear. The training you need to do and the kind of repetition and the actual intention to work on the skill needs to be consistent for a period of time. Some emotions you can get rid of or you can get back control of very, very quickly. But some of the heightened emotions, let's say if you've been angry your whole life or struggled with frustrations or self-doubt your whole life, there's a lot packed into why that's the case. The root behind that, almost like imagine a tree with deep, deep roots. It's hard to unroot it in one go. You've got to start breaking it down layer by layer. You've got to start watching the emotion as it comes up. All right, so this is the skill of emotional regulation. All right, it's the second skill I train my poker athletes. We start with self-awareness, which is a real prerequisite for a lot of skills, and then we go deep into emotional regulation because it's such an important skill if you want to perform at a high level consistently. Now, if you'd like to work on this skill more deeply and you'd like to be part of a community that's leveling up their skills every day, every week, every month for the rest of the year, then I've got an exciting opportunity that might still just be available. It might actually be full by the time I'm shooting this video, but if it is available, click on the link in the description below. There'll be a link to an application form. You'll be able to fill that in and apply for one of the next spots in my Poker Athlete program. I'll be running that program at the start of January. There's 10 spots available. Once they're full, they're full. But if you want to work on the skill and 7 other skills over the course of an immersive program, I'll be coaching you, live coaching every week, ongoing training in a group environment, then apply for one of those spots. All right, guys, thanks for watching this to the very end. Hit that like button before you go, and there's plenty more coming from me very soon.